Hey everybody. Hello, 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 and welcome to Teachathon. And I just thank you for your visiting us. And we have so many great stories to share. And I am beyond excited to introduce to you Dr. Monica Burns, and she is going to talk about injecting creativity into your classroom. Such a skilled educator, and has been sharing with us at Class Tech Tips is the her Twitter handle, and just all kinds of class tech tips for many years. But anyway, enough of me talking. I just really hope you enjoy it, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat for any questions that you may have. So let me get out of the way here. Here is Dr. Monica Burns.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to join you today for this session, Injecting Creativity into Your Classroom. My name is Monica Burns. I'm an ed tech and curriculum consultant, and I'll share a bit more about my background and my work as we dive into this presentation today. Now, I do have some live closed captioning happening at the bottom of the screen. I like to use my Google Slides workaround with having my Google Slides presentation in the background and the awesome closed captioning feature that it has right within there. So, today we're going to talk about injecting creativity into your classroom, both within a virtual space as well as in a physical space. I'll go into a lot of favorites, sharing some favorite resources and sharing some things that you might want to check out and explore. Now, I have lots of favorites on my blog, classtechtips.com. You'll see a search bar in the blog area where you can even type in keywords and search for things you want to know a bit more about. But of course, as you are watching today, you are welcome to send a message my way, whether you send an email or you go to @ClassTechTips on Instagram or Twitter. I try my best to get to all of those messages nice and quick. So if you are looking for a resource or you just want to say hello or you want to share a story from your classroom, feel free to reach out to me there as well. Now, I am based on the East Coast of the United States. I'm a former New York City public school teacher, and New York City is right over my shoulder here. I'm facing west right now, but I live in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, where I taught for many years. Now, I started off, like many educators, in a classroom with an overhead projector and chalk and a chalkboard. And we were able to transition within the space of less than a decade into a classroom that was one to one with devices. We received magnet funding as part of our district's magnet initiative, and we were able to transition from a traditional public school to a magnet school for environmental stewardship. Now, this opportunity allowed us to go one to one with different devices, but it also meant that we had a pretty strong commitment to hands on learning experiences too. And I love putting these two pictures side by side. One is with a student of mine with their iPad out on their desk, and another is with a bucket full of worms, composting that was happening inside of our classroom. Now, you couldn't have put any apple cores or banana peels to compost in our iPad cart, right? We needed those worms to help us experience what it was like to compost and talk about some environmental topics. But those iPads helped us do research, chronicle our thinking, organize ideas, and create things that just didn't exist before, like screencasts and movies, and all sorts of things that students were able to make and create. Now, I'm not sure where you are watching from today, but I wanted to share with you my Amazon receipt all the way from 2012, where I really did buy 1,000 worms and have them shipped to my New York City classroom. So that's always something to consider, right? If you're looking for some hands on experiences. But in addition to getting outside and exploring different spots, this is a picture that I snapped during a mini field trip to Central Park, which was kind of in our backyard at our school. We also publish things to the iBook store, like student created projects where we created, this is a picture from iBooks author, where students were able to do some research, write reports, create things with a hands-on, rip that construction paper collage. We were snapping pictures, recording student voice, and really sharing and celebrating their work that way. Well, now if you follow along with me a bit, you know that I often snap pictures or share tips on different spots in social media. Although I'm at home recording this for you today and have been supporting different groups virtually this past year now, I often travel and go to different places and spend time in different classrooms. And today we're going to take some of those big ideas and we're going to jump into a conversation around ways to inject creativity into your classroom. So I'm very excited to spend some time with you to share some big ideas on how you can use open-ended creation tools to help support students as they are making and sharing things that they have learned. I'm also going to talk about and show some examples from the Adobe Spark tools. I am a big fan of the Adobe Spark tools. I've done some work with their team. I've got a book that Ben Forda and I wrote. You might have seen the little picture on one of those early slides called 40 Ways to Inject Creativity into Your Classroom with Adobe Spark. So one of my favorite tools, and we're going to talk about that as we look at some creative experiences for students. It'll be our spotlight or our vehicle for today. Now, if you've been in a classroom that has access to devices, you know that it's not magic, right? It's not a magic thing that transforms automatically what teaching and learning can look like in a classroom. We know that it takes some opportunities to pause and plan and reflect and think about how we can really make sure that students are doing things that are bigger and brighter and different than they might have been doing before. We will give students extra access to information. We can give more ways for kids to show and share what they know. And so, although we're going to look at some of my favorite spotlight tools today, I always love to have a quick reminder about our tasks before apps. We want to make sure anytime we're looking at the wonderful tools that we'll take a peek at today, that we're always putting that learning first, putting the learning front and center. And so it starts off with identifying learning goals, with deciding and thinking about what the success criteria will be or how you'll know for sure that students understand something, and of course, thinking about student audience and what it looks like for them to share what they've learned with different parts in the world, different parts of the world, different students in different places, or maybe something a little bit more local for their share. Now, today, as we talk about injecting creativity into your classroom, it really is all about charting a course or setting students out on a journey. We have an opportunity to design what that would look like for them while still giving them the space and flexibility to truly be creative. And so, I want to share a couple guiding questions with you that can really help us think about what this will look like in action. And so these questions help you hopefully get your wheels spinning about upcoming project ideas or things that are really high on your priority list of the experiences you want students to have. The first is our what question. What do we want students to learn? Now, this comes back to our learning goals, of course. You might have a checklist, a curriculum map or calendar that you're working off of, or you might be thinking like that little icon jumping up and down that you want to think about student interest and what they are most excited about. And all of those pieces coming together might guide your own decisions on what it is you want students to learn or experience. Next up is our how. How is this tool going to make it different? So, if you are looking at different tools or resources, really saying to yourself, what is special about this particular spotlight tool that you've chosen? How is it really going to change or transform student learning experience? So that might be because you're looking for something that is more audio focused, more giving students an opportunity to talk about their learning. You might be on the hunt or on the lookout for tools that incorporate video components as well. Or you might really be thinking first and foremost about collaboration and how you can make sure kids are working together. So it's not about forcing a project into a particular tool, but it's about saying, what are we really looking to accomplish here? No matter what the tool or resource might be, what is it that we really want to do that might be different than in the past? And so, of course, I love sharing spotlight tools and talking about different pieces like that, and we'll look at some of my favorites today. But I do want to make sure that you know, right, that having this conversation before you even jump in is going to be so important. Now, our last question is our who. Who will see and celebrate with students? Now, this might seem like an afterthought, but this is something you can keep in mind before you even introduce a project or activity to students. You want to know from the beginning who is going to jump up and down with excitement when they see what students have created. Disco ball optional, right? Twitter or Instagram would be optional, but maybe even sharing within the four walls of a physical space or in a virtual space, and having kids jump onto a video call or post a Flipgrid and talk about how proud they are of the thing that they made. So, all of these are components as we talk about what it looks like to bring in creative learning experiences to students. And I'm going to share with you some examples and some favorites from my travels, from my connections with educators in different parts of the world, with things you could do with students in elementary school, sitting in a circle on the rug, all the way up to high school students who have plenty of stories to tell and math concepts to capture and science experiments to talk about too. So, the first type of creative tools we'll look at, I'm going to show you what a few examples created with Spark Video. This is one of my go-to creation tools, totally free. You can learn more about it on their website. It's just spark.adobe.com/edu. And I've actually got some free graphic organizers on my website that go along with these two. So you might have students creating a video that talks about the steps for growing a bean plant, or you might have them doing a project where they are profiling someone, like a biography, or you might even have them sharing a place they want to travel to or a place that they want to convince someone else to go to. Lots of different options. Now, this example is a favorite to share. I'm going to press play, and this one is muted. I'm just going to point out a couple things to you as you watch. Now, this is a tool that from a school that I've done some work with the past few years, St. Pat's Yorktown. You can follow along with them on Twitter. And this example comes from an 8th grade classroom. Miss Proctor, her students were doing all sorts of fantastic things. And she asked me, because I would come and visit the school pretty often, what are some things that kids could do? How can they show off what it is that they've learned? And we talked about having them make tutorials similar to the kind of tutorials they might have found when searching on Khan Academy or YouTube. Now, here her students did a little bit of an app smash. They took a screen recording in Notability, and then they uploaded it. They added it to Spark Video. So they drew and they showed off all their steps. And the student, Brianna here, she talks about all of the steps as well. So this might seem different than what you would think of when we use the term creative or creativity in the classroom, but it truly is a creative way for students to show what they know and provides so much value both to students and their teacher. So much so that when I went back to Ms. Proctor's classroom not that long after this activity, she said, Monica, all of the students, all they want to do is make videos, right? Because they were so excited about this format. But you know what? It gave her so much more insight into their understanding and their thought process than a couple multiple choice questions might have. Next up is a favorite example, and this one I will turn the audio on for you. This is one I stumbled upon when I was on Twitter, and I ended up connecting with Leo's teacher virtually. And I asked Jesse, can I share this with folks? It's such a wonderful example. And he said, of course. And I put the link there for you as well. And you can follow along with his students' work on that Twitter handle there too. And I had a chance to meet Jesse a couple years ago in Minnesota at an event I was speaking at, and I got to hear a little bit more about the story behind this awesome video. But let's go ahead and take a listen.
The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Setting. This book takes place on a continent once called North America, but is now called Panem. Characters. Katniss. Katniss is a intelligent, heroic teenager who is handy with a bow and arrow. Prim. Prim is Katniss's little sister. She is kind and sweet. Gale. Gale is Katniss's hunting partner. When it comes to trapping animals, he can trap almost anything. Peeta. Peeta is a strong, young man who has always secretly had a crush on Katniss. Plot. District 12 is one out of the 12 districts that create Panem. Today is a special day. Today is called the Reaping. Today, each district will send in 2 tributes, one boy and one girl, to participate in the annual Hunger Games, where they will fight to the death in an arena. Back in District 12, Katniss's little sister, Prim, has been chosen out of random to participate in the Hunger Games. Katniss, Prim's older sister, instantly volunteers. Soon after, Peeta Merlack, who has always been extra nice to Katniss, gets chosen to participate in the Hunger Games. Nobody volunteers. What will happen next? You will have to find out.
So I love this example for so many reasons, especially because it's one that we can unpack and talk a little bit about what might have happened behind the scenes to get Leo to a place where he could make and create this type of video. But before we do and we unpack this together, I'd love for you to take a moment. Maybe you jot it down yourself, or maybe you just think on it for a second or two. What kind of things might have happened? What do you think might have happened in Leo's classroom to get him to a place where he could make something that looked like this? So maybe take a moment to jot that down. Think a little bit about what must have happened in Leo's classroom before he could make something like this. So, if you've had a moment to think on what it might have happened, or what might have happened in Leo's classroom, let's unpack and talk about a couple things that might have happened in his space. So, one of the learning goals that could have been the focus for this activity might have been character traits. We see that Leo talks about different characters. He shows off some of the key pieces that are important to them with different symbols. He also, though, talks about sequence of events. So that might have been a core focus for this type of creative project. You might also have had students focus more in on persuasive writing. So they might have looked at the hook of something or how can we convince someone. And maybe these students were even given a choice on convincing someone to watch a movie or convincing someone to read a favorite book, like you see Leo has done here. Now, we also see a very clear emphasis on plot elements. So, that could have been something that was most important or top of the list. And we also see that he included symbols. My favorite symbol is probably the sweet candy piece that we see on the one on the slide where he talks about Prim and how sweet she is, right? We know that a student would have to have brainstorm what kind of symbols represent sweet and use those keywords, that vocabulary, to help search for the very best images. So lots of ways to incorporate these components. And we also see some pretty important attention paid to the theme. So the theme here, right? The darker colors, the serious music, the tone of his voice as he's created this piece, right? All of these are things that are important to consider, and really important when we talk about audience too, because we know that if he had chosen a bubblegum pink or a bright sunshiny yellow in the background and the music had been upbeat and energetic, well, by the time we finished chapter 1 of this book, we would have been pretty confused at what Leo was thinking when he tried to persuade us to read a book that has a very, very serious tone to it. But of course, we know that it doesn't have to be any of the things on this list. It really comes down to a you name it situation, right? You decide what it's going to look like in a classroom when you're using an open ended creation tool like this one. You might have students focused in on one big thing. You might take the rubrics and checklists that you've always used for past units of study and pull them all together to help you decide on envision what it will look like for students to create something like this. Now, of course, it's important to have a plan, right? A plan of action. So you'll want to think about, what does your plan include? You want to make sure that those goals are very clear, right? That you've identified exactly what it is that you want to focus on, that you've customized any things that may be particular for different groups of students, that you've built in any types of support that you know that they'll need in order to be successful, and that you've decided who is going to see and share and celebrate with students after they create something. So much that can happen right here within this space as you are making decisions on how you want students to get creative and how you want them to share their work this year. I want to take you off and show you some steps for creating a quick movie. We'll pretend like we have students doing a project all about sharks, and they want to tell you a little bit about sharks, something nice and simple to get us into this and get today. So let's go ahead and switch over to my screen here. And so you can see Spark in action. So I'm here at spark.adobe.com. I'm going to go to my plus sign and I'm going to create a video. I've used this with students of all ages. And so for our project today, we're just going to do an all about sharks, a quick creative creation. Now, there's great story templates, but I'm going to start from scratch. And for this one, I'm going to create a title, add some pictures, and just show you how quickly students can transform what might be a kind of simple reading or research experience into something that's really ready to celebrate, that will help promote buy-in and get them excited. First off, I'm going to just get rid of my little stamp here. So I'm going to turn off my little logo there. I'm going to get rid of my outro slide. I use this as a blogger, so that's why it's got those extra pieces there. And I might do something here with text, and I might type in all about sharks, and then I can record my voice. So let's go ahead and record. I can't wait to tell you everything I've learned about sharks. So I can go ahead and create that here. I might go to my theme and I might change it. So maybe it's going to be something blue and oceany. And then maybe the next slide, I'll put in a photo. So I could upload a photo if I've got shark. I could go to find free photos and type in sharks. And now I can go in here and find some great pictures, maybe pull in this one here. And maybe on this slide, I give a fact based on something I've read all about sharks. So I might put something here and record my voice, and kids can keep building and adding these slides to create a video. So just to give you a quick behind the scenes look of how kids might jump in and create something. Next up, when we talk about creativity, is giving kids an opportunity to make websites or web pages that show what they know. They might use a tool like Spark Page to do this. You might have students build out a page where they are able to show off everything they've learned. Now, the big difference here from a video type of project is that you might have students talking about something with more text or embedding more videos or links. Here's a favorite example. You can see a little bit.ly link down there if you want to check it out too. Instead of being on the web, I've just recorded myself scrolling down the page so I can talk and chat about it at the same time. And in this fantastic example, a student took what would typically be the kind of project you might type up and print out, and created this website where you can move up and down. You can take a look at all the extra images that he's added, all of the headings and the paragraphs, and everything that he's put into this page to show off what he's learned about the Colorado River. Another example, so beyond our social studies one here, might be this one. And you see the little bit.ly link down there too, in case you want to bookmark it and check it out. So with this example, again, I'm just recording myself as I am scrolling down the screen. I have one that was shared with me by an educator that I did some work with in Indiana. And so I was sharing with them, we were doing a whole workshop around reading responses and ELA and all sorts of things. And she reached out to me on Twitter after the session and showed off this great one that one of her students made. It's a portfolio full of their poetry, and all of their poetry is inspired by the color aquamarine. So I love this example because it shows just how you can really take some of these open-ended tools and go in lots of different directions what students might make and create. Now, when we are looking at our best practices for injecting creativity into your classroom, you might take a look at some different frameworks and standards to help make sure that your conversations around these types of projects and activities for students are really rooted in best practices. So there's a few different frameworks and standards you might want to take a look at. If you've ever explored the ISTE standards, the students, teachers, coaches, and leaders standards that they have, the student standards from ISTE encourage students to create and to communicate and to share and work together and produce something that they can then show off to a group. And so those student standards might give you some direction and some vocabulary as you explore different ways that you might want students to create just about anything when it comes to a activity that captures their learning, gives them a place to synthesize information from different places, and then make something really special. You might, of course, take a look at the TPAC standards. This TPAC or framework would have us looking at the intersection of content, pedagogy, and technology, or you may jump into the SAMR model from Dr. Ruben Puentera, which talks about the ways technology can be integrated into classroom learning experiences, such as substitution, like we used to write it out and now we type it up, all the way up to redefinition, like we used to write a report and now we create a podcast or a movie and we share it with a group of students in another part of the world. So lots of ways to get creative here with your group, but also root it in the best practices. Now, when we look at all of these components today and we talk about what it looks like to get students really making something that is creative and powerful, right? This idea of injecting creativity into your classroom doesn't have to just be, I've made a movie, I've built a website. It might be quick or simple projects where you give students new ways to communicate what they've learned. And so in order to show you a quick kind of activity or idea that you might want to explore with your group, I want to introduce to you 5 ed tech essentials that I've been talking about a lot this spring and summer to help ground our conversations on what our goals are for both creativity and getting kids making and sharing and working in spaces that are virtual as well as in classroom experiences. And so I'm going to talk through these pieces as it relates to some of the creative projects we've already looked at and then expand upon these pieces as well. So the 5 EdTech essentials we'll finish up with during our time together today are consumption, creation, collaboration, assessment, and expansion. And so, as I mentioned, with these 5, right, I know I've been wearing 2 hats when talking about different types of implementation. So, things that you might do inside of the classroom, like in a physical, traditional face to face space, or outside the classroom when kids are working at a distance. And so, they might be connecting virtually, collaborating virtually, and sharing and celebrating their work at a distance as well. So when we think about being creative, we often don't think so much of the first one on the list, which is consumption. But I want to bring this into our conversation on creativity and creating things because we know that kids need to see examples, they need to consume information in order to learn new things. And it is an important part of the process that might give students some creative inspiration as well. So we may decide that you are going to have students watch video to inspire their own video creation. I love resources like TED Ed to help inspire students or even help explain a new topic. And you can see these, they're all totally free by going to ed.ted.com. They also have a great YouTube channel. Now, if you wanted kids to build their own website or make their own videos, they might first jump into a space like this to get some inspiration or some information that they might use. Now, you might also have students reading and doing research, whether it's articles or books you want them to explore. I love Epic, and if you haven't been to Epic's website before, it's actually free for educators to set up a classroom. And so the students can jump in, they can read through books that you've picked out for them. And I know there's a wide range of educators on the call today. So even though it says kids 12 and under, this is something you might introduce to your middle school students or even your high school students as well, just because some of the informational text and nonfiction text might be useful for them too. Now, another layer to add to our consumption that can help students gather information, help them go out and try try different things based on the ideas that they've heard from a podcast episode. Well, this might be another layer of consumption to explore. I love Wow in the World from NPR, but there are lots of different ones, and you don't have to have your kids set up with a Spotify account to make this happen. You might instead just share a link to a podcast and encourage them to stream it or listen to a chunk of it straight from their device. Most of these you can access straight from the web as well. So, those consumption opportunities can help inspire student creators by giving them examples and helping them understand what is possible when it comes to making and creating something themselves. And so, creation is next up on the list of our essentials today. And it might include asking students to record a narrated slideshow. Maybe they're going to do something similar to what we saw when it comes to having students create that book trailer example. Or maybe there's other types of creation you want students to do, like a poster, a collage, or a graphic, some type of representation where they're pulling together information from different places and creating something brand new. So let's go out and take a look at what it would look like for students to create a quick graphic. I'm going to jump back over to Spark Video, and I'm going to come back here to the home page. We looked at video, we showed those Colorado and aquamarine examples of Spark page, but you can also have students make a collage or a post, and there's a couple ways to do it. If you go to the plus sign here and you choose collage, students can then decide if they want to search for one keyword or a couple keywords and create a collage with multiple photos. So we won't have to use that shark example again. Instead, for this one, I'll share with you a quick creation activity. That's a great way to start the school year and get kids creatively telling everyone in their class a little bit about themselves. And this would be a my favorite thing style project. So you might have students type in New York City, and maybe I'll choose this image. I'll type in avocado and I'll choose this image, and maybe I'll choose one more. Let's put in books and let's see if there's a good book picture. This one looks great. And then I'll next, and this will help make my, could be any size I wanted to. I could choose from any of these, but I'll use a square for today. And this will push me out into Arc Post, which is a graphic design tool. And so this will take my 3 pictures and automatically create a collage for me. Then I can go to my side of my screen here and I can add in other things. Like maybe I want to add in some text. Maybe it would say something like my favorite things. And I can add that right here to the page. Maybe I want to add my name on here. So I'll add some more text and I'll just put Monica right here. And I'll add this down to the bottom. And if I go to this button here that says design, it'll actually let me click on here and it will give me some new designs. Look at how it reorganized this for me. And so it can help me think about new ways to set things up so that my collage has everything in just the right spot. So I might like something like this with the black and white background. I might want to make sure my skyline looks a little bit different there. So I might put that there too. I could rotate these images if I want the pages of my books to go like this, or I could maybe make one of these images colored by going back to the filter and choosing that this one will not be a grayscale, but will be green instead. So I could go ahead and do a lot of different things here. Maybe I'll make this one bright and colorful as well, and leave the book black and white. So I can go ahead and create this type of graphic, which would be a nice, quick type of project that you might have students do, where they would then have something that shows off what they've learned and is, or what their favorite things are, excuse me, and might then transfer into the type of project they do if you want to show off what they've learned about something. So lots of things that you can do right here, right within Adobe Spark. Now, if I finish this, I could go to the download button and choose JPEG, and I would save this quick little graphic. So the creation activities could be short and sweet like this one, or it might be something more robust, like having kids make something that was going to be a little bit more of a longer term project, like that math tutorial or the book trailer or the Colorado River project or the poetry piece. But I love showing this quick example because we don't have to do something that's as deep in terms of a time commitment in order to inject creativity into the classroom. We can do something quick and simple like this that gets kids brainstorming and thinking creatively as they make a type of visual communication. Now, adding to our list of 5 before we finish up today is collaboration. And you might have students working together to share things that they've made. They might be inside of a Google Doc like you see here, and then they each get their own slide and add their Spark Post graphic to their Google Slides. So that might be something they do. You might open up a discussion forum for them and have them chatting as they are making and creating different things. Or you might even ask them to jump into a space like Flipgrid and record an update and say, I'm working on my video today. Can everyone take a peek at what I've done so far and give me some feedback? Right? So you have that as an opportunity as well. Now, as we add and on and continue to add into our list here, next up is assessment. And so when we think of our essentials and the ways that we can use ed tech in different ways, assessment, of course, is important, but it doesn't have to be a quiz or a test, right? It might be something where you are asking students to share an update, things that are more of a formative assessment piece. So you might circle back to Flipgrid and ask students to give video responses. Maybe they are answering a prompt or a question that you've given them. So lots of ways you could do something like this. Or maybe you decide to set up something like Padlet, where kids can post what it is that they've done at the end of a project. You can collect all of them, see all of them, and get ready to celebrate all of these pieces. Or maybe we even use that quick Spark Post activity I just shared with you to have kids create exit tickets or exit slips like you see here, and they can set goals or add pictures or text or whatever they want. Now, the very last one to add to our list as we talk about really getting kids into a space where they can be creative and where you can inject creativity into your classroom is expansion. And I love showing this off with the tool Google Arts and Culture and their street tours or museum views. They use a couple different names to describe them. But I love this one, which shows how you can take a little bit of an interactive walkthrough. This is me just tapping and walking with air quotes here on my screen. And then you can have students navigating different spaces, exploring different spaces, and talking about what it is that they see, and maybe even gathering information for their own websites that they might build, videos that they might make, or collages or graphics that they might make and share with their class. Now, for all of these pieces, right, you can take kids out to different parts of the world, giving them prompting questions, giving them an action item, and they can use that information to go out and make and create something special. But we know that no matter what it is that kids make and create, we want there to be an audience for them to see, for others to see and celebrate their work. It might include adding a QR code so a student can scan a QR code and go straight to a video like our literal and proportional equations video. You might have students post something on YouTube that they've made if the permissions are there for them to do that. Or you might even have them do that quick share out like the exit ticket and post them all in a class spot like Google Classroom or Teams or in Seesaw, you name it. So lots of things to consider. I know I talked about the Spark tools a little bit, and I'm one of their founding members of their creativity crew as an Adobe creative educator. So I want to make sure you know that they have this new free program that you can join up and take a look at too. But before we finish up today, I just want to leave us with a few things to consider. No matter what you're looking at when it comes to integrating creative experiences and injecting creativity into your classroom, you can be really strategic, very purposeful, and super thoughtful about the tech-rich experiences you introduce to students. There's so much that they can do to share their learning, for you to celebrate, and for you to help level the playing field so every student can share their story, talk about what their passions are, and increase their curiosity within digital spaces. Thank you so much for carving out time to spend with me today for this session. I'm wishing you and your school community the very best this year. I've put my information up here on the screen so you can take a screenshot of it. You can jot it down, and don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out, send me a message. And of course, I've got lots of extra resources on my website, classtechtips.com.
This was fabulous. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Burns. And check out at Class Tech Tips is to find out what else she's doing. And I've already got some really great ideas for injecting creativity into my classroom. So thank you very much. We thank you so much for the Teachathon, your participation in our Teachathon. There you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
Experience. Thank you.
Yeah, Monica Bones really killed it with those breakdowns that every educators everywhere would be able to have something awesome to actually take along, learn from, and then in this kind of period. So thank you, Monica, for doing that really good presentation.
Yes, awesome. All right, John, I'm going to hop backstage and see what else I could find. But I want to say goodbye to all our folks.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you for being part of this. And you see us very soon in your emails. And there's some awesome package you're really thinking of. So just stay tuned. You get our emails. You'll see us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube Live. And come to our website at teachatonnetwork.com. So we will definitely be there. Thank you so much. So we'll be ending the broadcast right now. Exactly.